Shays Rebellion, a fight for stolen rights that empowered the farmers and gave the government more authority in writing the U.S. Constitution. During this time period, the United States gained its independence. This caused the Founding Fathers to create a document in which they listed all of the requirements they wanted their new country to have, including little to no power for the government because they wanted to be anything but like the monarchy in Britain. Those men wrote a document called the Articles of Confederation that granted little to no power to the government. There were not any outside events that influenced the Shays Rebellion, but what inspired the rebels was the taxes placed on them by the wealthier people. Daniel Shays was the main rebel in the fight for the rights. Less taxes from the British and respect for the veterans of the Revolutionary War. One of the main players in this event was Captain Daniel Shays. He was a Revolutionary War soldier that was being taxed by the rich people. Shays rallied the people and put the idea of rebellion in the air. He had to get as much support as he could to be able to fight back hard. They had small meetings in secret and did small acts to protest the fight for their rights. Governor Bowdoin raised taxes and made it so people had to pay in gold, lighting the spark of rebellion. Bowdoin ignored the actions of the rebellion and took no action to get military together and act. But other governors in surrounding areas were setting up militaries and were prepared to fight back. People in this time had hard lives. The poor farmers were taxed by the rich, causing them to lose their farm and be arrested. The farmers had high debts, and if they couldn't be paid, the farmers would be arrested. Before the rebellion, the taxes were unreasonably high, and the farmers had a hard time paying it. People could be sent to court and imprisoned for not paying the tax. General Benjamin Lincoln was a fighter for taxes. He fought against the rebels and almost defeated them. The rebels kept being pushed back and retreated to Rhode Island and eventually to Vermont, until Daniel Shays showed up. He led the rebels in their protests to help rally them and gave ideas for their revolts. And finally came to an end after almost a year of fighting. The most important result was the calling of the Constitutional Convention. This was so important because it inspired the government and shaped this country into what it is today. Our Founding Fathers called for the Constitutional Convention due to realizing the Articles of Confederation were posing new threats to their new nation's safety. Our government, the Constitution, states that the Constitution of the United States of America is the supreme law of the United States, empowered with the sovereign authority of the people by the framers and the consent of the legislature of the states. It is the source of all government powers, and also provides important limitations on the government that protect the fundamental rights of the United States citizens. Many things changed after the Shays Rebellion. For example, the writing of the United States Constitution was the same year as the rebellion. The Constitution gave new, fair laws to everyone, from the low-class farmers to the upper-class wealthy. The Shays Rebellion influenced the writing of the Constitution and also the Whiskey Rebellion. The Whiskey Rebellion was basically the same thing, but the people did not want to pay for their whiskey, so they revolted. But this time, the people lost, because the Constitution was in place and George Washington was in office, so the government could use its new power to shut down the rebellion. A lot of people were affected by this event, including all of the farmers of the United States, because before the rebellion, they were not being treated fairly, but after, they got more rights and their farms back. Another person who was affected was Daniel Shays, because he was a leader in the protests. He led the rebellion into victory and the people of this new nation into a new age of freedom and prosperity. Lastly, the people of the United States government, because they were being pressed with a difficult challenge. And to fix it, they had to make difficult decisions to try and calm the people and bring peace back to their new nation. The intended consequences was to abolish all of the harsh taxes and to take away the laws that state the tax collectors can demand you to only pay in gold. They also wanted to give all of the farmers their farms back and out of prison. Laws and regulations changed after the Shays Rebellion. When the people fought back, the government had no choice but to rewrite the laws and take into consideration the taxes being too high, and the government having not enough power. This led to the writing of new laws in the Constitution. Most of these laws are still in use to this day to ensure an event of such shall not happen again. This topic is one of the most important U.S. history events because it was the spark that started the fire. That was the United States Constitution. Because of the Shays Rebellion, the Articles of Confederation was abolished, and the United States started a new era of prosperity and achievement. In this town on Sunday morning, February 4th, 1787, Daniel Shays and 150 of his followers in rebellion against the Commonwealth were surprised and routed by General Benjamin Lincoln in command of the Army of Massachusetts after a night march through Hadley of 30 miles through snow and cold below zero. This victory for the forces of the government influenced the Philadelphia Convention, which 3 months later met and formed the Constitution of the United States. Obedience to law is true liberty, erected by the New England Society of Brooklyn, New York, as a gift to the Petersham Society